we really have not adopted or realized the hope of what's possible for a human being in this life. Our goals have been really modest. If they've been wealth, if they've been reputation, if they've been family, if they've been people, being liked, being loved. All full-time jobs, we have not yet really understood that there's something that contains life, from which life comes, from which we came as human beings, that is realizable, that is experienceable within inside of us. And that even though at our birth, that was our ultimate reality, or just before it, just before we separated. Even though it was our ultimate reality, little by little, by little, by little, bit by little, we went out. As we were supposed to. We went out to explore. Maybe not like Magellan explored and Columbus explored, but we went out to explore what was possible for us. What does a person do? We went out to explore and we explore and we explored and we have explored to the point that our explorations seem to be repetitious unless we convince ourselves in some way that if we change our geographical location or our traveling partners or our wardrobe or our appearance, that our next exploration will be different. But if we couldn't convince ourselves of that, and we weren't unfortunate enough to convince ourselves of that, we were fortunate enough to have trouble convincing ourselves that this next thing is going to be different, we stall, because the possibility of this interconnection to light, interconnection to sound, interconnection to the vibration of life, not in a metaphorical sense, but in an actual sense, is a potential experience for a human life. We've lost that thread, so our hopes are extremely modest. Our hopes are hopes of acquisition, hopes of quiet and entertainment and calm and lack of stress, lack of trouble, lack of problems. Not recognizing that human beings were not put on this earth in all their intricacy, in all their extraordinariness, in all their uniqueness, with the ultimate possibility of that human being is to experience of life with less trouble. Isn't that ludicrous? Doesn't that sound like what an over-design? Our thinking capacity alone is so intricate and capable that would be given to us, and our ability to feel and intuit and have compassion and all the capacities that human beings have would all be instilled in us, put into us, manufactured into us, so that we could live a life to decrease our problems. Not. There is something there, but we've been so involved in our problems, plans, and relationships, in scaling down the trouble that we have and trying to create smooth sailing for ourselves, so involved in that endeavor that we've lost the possibility of something far beyond that. The possibility of reconnecting to the energy that put us here in the first place. Not in a metaphorical sense, not in a New Age sense, but in actual sense, that we are in vibration. Not vibes, vibration. We're in the vibration of energy, we're in the vibration of light, we're in the vibration of sound. Not outside, but inside. We are its creation. And since we are its creation, it is in reach of us to feel that connection. And in feeling that connection, become filled up naturally from within, not from our successes and acquisition, not for our winning, not for the impressions we make, but filled up from within because of that natural connection that we've lost. And being filled up within, finding ourselves in a different position than we've ever been. And as we've become filled up within, becoming less in need of what happens outside us. Be willing to take the things that happen in life because we don't depend on them, because we can be filled up from within, or at least more filled up from within. We find ourselves able to actually give, not give with the hope of getting back, not being kind and compassionate circumstantially, but actually being filled up within and feeling that everything else is, well, it can't be for me. If I'm filled up within, where's it going to go? Nobody keeps filling the bathtub once it gets full, so when we're filled up, we are naturally, by our filled upness, giving without expecting return. This get-together is part of that process. It's not the beginning part of that process. There's people sitting here that I've known for years and years and years, a lot of years, and they still find value in this dynamic. They're not done with this dynamic or looking to be done with it because it's introductory. It's a unique dynamic and it's valuable and people value it. So much so that they'll sit on these chairs, not like you guys with the cup holders. We were going to cut out those cup holders, but we decided, well, if you need a cup holder, you got a cup holder. So I'm saying that this is part of the process of getting to that filled up within. It's not an introduction to, it's part of the process, because there is a process to getting filled up within, from within. The process culminates with meditation on light, on sound, on an inner vibration that's tangible, that's invisible out here, but tangible inside. But doesn't begin with that. Begins with a process for ourselves of coming a little closer in fineness to that finest of vibrations, coming a little closer, losing our dishonesty to some degree, because everybody would acknowledge that dishonesty is dense. It's not fine. Our fear is not fine. We know our fear and our anxiety and our impatience and our jealousy, those things are not fine. We don't think they're fine. Sometimes we feel they're justifiable because of circumstances. But we don't feel they're fine. We feel they're coarse. We would like to minimize them. And maybe help be able to help you to minimize them. If your aim is to get to that inner vibration, that inner light, that inner sound, that will fill you up from within so you can be the person that a human being is really capable of being. But in this process, there are certain things that have to happen. Certain very specific things that we have to learn. We have to learn about our self-destructive behavior. Because if we're smoking a cigarette with one hand and running around a track with the other hand, we're not going to get our lungs in better shape. We have to know what we're doing that keeps us from this human possibility. And there are things that we do and we are that we do not realize, not because we're dense or not because we're dumb. But we have not crossed paths with that understanding. So we have to embark upon a process together, which leads us to less coarseness, more fineness, less importance of self-image and reputation, which is so burdensome and such a full-time job to maintain, less rushing, more ability to do one thing at a time and be really here, not in a metaphysical or a metaphorical sense, but really be here. Not be in the future, in the past, but be here. I may be able to help you to get closer to those possibilities if your dream is the eventuality of that inner connection. Because I can tell you, I have had very little success with self-improvement type aims. A person who wants to has something they don't like about themselves that they would like to change. I have had really very little success with that. But if a person has in them that unawakened dream, that forgot about possibility, that it's alive in you somewhere and can come to some degree to the surface, if you can reimagine your hope as it was, and you're willing to embark on an experiment of the possibility that you could come closer to that hope, then I may be able to help you. So obviously part of my job is to remind you that there is something beyond. I don't mean beyond life as in death. I mean beyond life as in life. There is something beyond the experiences that you've had. And if you've had a flash of them in your life, from time to time, a few flashes, that experience, that possibility of that being your experience of life, is one that I have to remind you of, because it is there. And this, you might call it system, that I've learned part of and developed part of, and give away with no expectation of return of any kind. Not money, not thanks, not anything. Because when you're filled up within, from within, you don't need that. It's all for you. I have it all. I am not in need of your anything. And when I met a person who was in that position, who was not in need of anything from me, it was disquieting for a while, but after a time, I relaxed into that situation and recognized that if it existed for someone, it could exist for me. So part of my job in this system is to remind you of the hope that you've given up on. Part of my responsibility in this system is to have methods for you to get closer. Methods which you take on for a while and then toss. No holy Bible, no holy book, no special tool, no magical anything. Things that you take on as experiments, verify some possibilities for yourself, maybe lose some obstacles to your freedom, maybe discover some self-destructive tendencies, and then drop those tools like you do when you build a house with a saw. You put it away. You don't even put it over the mantelpiece. This was the saw with which I built this house. You don't do that. It was a tool you used. We have no sacred tools. I shouldn't use saw as a tool because sandpaper. So when I describe to you, or I tell you the possibility that I may be able to help you to get somewhere you hadn't thought really was anything but a story in the book, or books, that there have to be elements that raise and maintain your hope. There has to be elements to help you see things as they are, see your self-destructive tendencies. There have to be elements that help bring you into the moment, tools. Because if you're not here, it's difficult to receive anything. With the possibility of your getting finer and finer in the vibration that you manifest, that you can learn meditation, not meditation on a word or a candle or anything outside of yourself, not a mantra, not anything outside of yourself at all. Not even on your breath. But something behind that, the energy behind that. That if you get to a point and find this, I can teach you how to meditate on that inner sound and that inner light and on that inner vibration. I can teach you how to do that. Of course, you have to do that. But I can point you in the right direction. But I can't start out to point you in that direction. I have to start out by pointing you in the direction of having less of this denseness, this hurrying, this worrying, this manipulating of circumstances so that we'll be okay, this wanting things to go a certain way so bad that we're willing to distort our lives to get them to come out that way. That we get to a point where we're so filled up with talking to ourselves, most of which nobody ever gets to hear. So people don't really get to even know how deep we run. They don't get to know that. That no matter how shallow we put ourselves forth, or how polite we put ourselves forth, we are human beings and we run very deep. But people don't get to know each other in that way, only in their thoughts. We have to learn that talking to ourselves, to the extent that we talk to ourselves, is not an asset. It's not a friend. It doesn't help us, it hurts us. We get so in developing that companion that it becomes our best friend, and it can tell us anything. It never lets us rest, it never lets us be satisfied. It's always pointing towards something else. It's always finding a defect. How often does that inner dialogue say, God, this is beautiful, in comparison to all the rest that it says? Think of all the rest that it says. And we have made our closest alliance with our inner dialogue. Nothing closer. No child or parent or husband or wife or lover has ever gotten as close to us as our inner dialogue. And look what it says to us. What an interesting thing to discover. What an interesting thing to be able to decrease. What a fascinating and promising thing to be able to conceivably lose. To replace that, quote, friend with something that has not an agenda of its own, which is not to our benefit. I'll let you in on something, a manipulation of mine. When we were deciding on this, to have this meeting, we found when to have this meeting and where to have this meeting, we found that there would be some people here who hadn't been to these meetings before. And I would like very much for those people to be able to approach with the best attitude possible. The attitude that maybe, totally unlikely, but maybe something unique is going on here. Possibility small. I've seen people talk to each other before. I've seen this format. I've seen. Maybe even a guy with an orange shirt. But to, in some way, circumvent that way of thinking and leave open the possibility that something unique is going on here. So in order to do that, first of all, sometimes we have these meetings indoors in a house. There's a barn over there, kind of a gym. It's not as unique as meeting outside. So I decided we would meet outside. And as we decided the different components of this meeting, I included that variable in the formula. What would best call a person's attention to that there's something different going on here, even though the possibility is so remote? I mean, you guys have seen so much. I mean, you could even say you've seen it all, or almost. So the possibility that something really unique in North San Juan, I don't think so. I'm going to give you guys a chance to ask anything you want to ask or say something, but I do want you to know at the essence of the system that I put forth, the points of view that I put forth, is a very important understanding, is that innate goodness and purity exists within us. It's not something that need be developed. If it weren't that we were covered by all these protective devices that have annexed themselves onto us from our earliest years, there would be no reason for this meeting whatsoever, because we are beautiful, we are giving, we are loving, all that is within us. But if you imagine that it's coming out, it's your imagination. Every once in a while it works its way out. But by the time it gets out through all our protective devices, it comes out in the form of need, not so much in giving. But that we have to develop goodness, that we have to develop compassion, that we have to develop anything whatsoever that was divinely given to us. We do not. This is a process of subtraction. This is a process of knowing and eliminating protective devices that we no longer need. Knowing and eliminating self-destructive tendencies. Knowing and eliminating these things that we've surrounded ourselves with. Reputation, defensiveness, opinions, that protect us from imagined dangers, but also insulate us from the power of grace to reach us, and the power of grace to emanate from us. Our examination, our experiment, is to see how this has come about, and that this has come about. Not by looking at our childhood, and not by re-examining anything of the past, but this moment, this moment, this moment, all about this moment. That's why this process is involved and takes effort, but is not complicated, because everything complex and beautiful and intricate as nature, more intricate than nature, has already been created in us. The ability to notice, the ability to have our senses open and to see and hear actually what's there, not what we want to be there. The ability to recognize the sensitivities of other people. To see what's needed more than what we need. All those capacities are built into us. It's natural, we have it. Even the ability to relax, believe it or not. Even the ability not to have to think of the next thing. Even the ability not to feel pressured. All built into us, but covered up. So any fault that I find, any criticism that I have, any tool that I give, any point of view is pointed at what has covered this beauty in you, not at that beauty within you. I have more confidence in your divine qualities than you have. If I look at the surface of things, I see how you've covered yourself. If I look beneath the surface of things, I see all those beautiful things that I described. So this isn't a magical process. This is a process of removal. It's a process of understanding. It's a process of recognizing that someone may know something that you don't know. And with that something, you may be able to rid yourself of some protective device or some self-destructive tendency, which keeps you from getting finer and finer and finer and lighter to the point that you could actually experience that inner reality.